This past year was kind of informative for me as far as One Rock Run. I learned some things myself. I learned some things from you, and a couple of things just kind of gelled in my mind and made more sense to me. So I thought I would share my 5 key takeaways for One Rock Run from 2023. Hi, I'm Ralph, and welcome to the Ageless Runner. If you're new here, I'm all about helping you have a fun and healthy running life at any age, but especially as you grow older. So my key takeaway number 1 is that run-walk intervals do not have to be time-based. Certainly most of us use time, run 60 seconds, walk 20, for example. But some of you, I learned, use distance, and this seems to work more so with people who do laps, either around a track or maybe in a neighborhood. For example, they might run 2 or 3 laps and walk a lap. And some of you use heart rate. If you watch my recent video on heart licks, you know that some people use high and low heart rates. I kind of use heart rate as a secondary trigger. In other words, I use time, but my heart rate gets above a certain level, I'll start walking until it comes down, and then I'll start running again. So your intervals do not have to be timed. So key takeaway number 2 is that your intervals or your run-walk ratio are not a set it and forget it. In other words, you shouldn't think that you always have to use the same run-walk times or ratios for every run you do. For example, if you're doing a long run, you might want to use a little lower ratio to give yourself more frequent walk breaks. Or if it's really hot and muggy out, or if you're trying to run a little harder, you might want to use different run-walk intervals, different run-walk ratios. What I do when I do a long run, if I start getting tired towards the end, I will decrease my ratio. In other words, I'll walk a little longer, run a little less. So it's not a set it and forget it and use the same intervals all the time. Now, key takeaway number 3 for me was the most eye-opening discovery that I made this past year. And it has to do with ratios, and that high ratios may not benefit you. And this past summer, I kind of did a paperwork exercise, kind of a math exercise, where I looked at different ratios, different walk times and run times. I looked at how that impacted overall pace. And what I found is as ratio increases, the improvement you get in pace becomes less and less. So for example, say you're running a 1-to-1 ratio where you're running 30 seconds and walking 30 seconds, and you decide to double that, where you go to a 2-to-1 ratio, where you will go and run for 60 seconds and walk for 30. It depends a little bit on your speed, your run speed, and your walk speed, but in general, you improve your pace by about 10%. But if I'm at a high ratio, if I'm at a 4-to-1 ratio, and I double that and go to 8-to-1, the improvement I get in pace is only about 5%. So even though we keep increasing our ratio, we may not get a big improvement in our pace. In fact, in the video I did on this, I made the recommendation that if your ratio is 4-to-1 or higher and you want to improve your pace, you're better off just running faster. Don't increase your ratio. However, if you're under 4-to-1 and you want to improve your pace, there it makes more sense to increase your ratio first and then running speed second. And the second thing you need to be careful of with high ratios is the number of walk breaks you get. Remember, one of the tenets of Run, Walk, Run, or the whole idea of it, is to help you run longer distances with less fatigue and less injury, and you do that by taking frequent walk breaks. As you increase your ratio, you take fewer and fewer breaks. For example, again, I'll use my 4-to-1, 8-to-1. If I go from a 4-to-1 ratio to an 8-to-1 ratio, I decrease my walk breaks almost by half, actually about 45%. So that's a pretty big reduction in the number of breaks you're getting. So you're going to risk, not only injury, but you're going to risk, am I going to get too tired and not finish my run? So be wary of high ratios. I kind of limit myself to no higher than 6-to-1. I typically use 4-to-1. So just be careful about high ratios. They may not be benefiting you as much as you might think. So key takeaway number 4 deals with walk time, in that you should give some consideration to walking long enough to make sure you get some recovery. And I base that on some experimentation I did this past summer, where I ran in very humid days, less humid days. I ran with kind of a moderate intensity and a higher intensity, and looked at how much my heart rate declined when I was walking. If your heart rate doesn't come down very much, it kind of indicates you're not getting much recovery, you're not getting much rest. And what I found in my experimentation at 15 seconds, if it's very humid, or I'm running, say, into zone 4, kind of a little higher intensity, my heart rate didn't come down very much. So that would tend to say that 15 seconds may not be enough walking time under those conditions. On the other hand, at 30 seconds, even if I ran at high humidity or I ran higher intensity, I pretty much got a decent heart rate recovery at 30 seconds. So 30 seconds makes a lot of sense. It's kind of a max walk time. Again, that's not firm. There may be reasons to walk more than 30 seconds if you're feeling fatigue or if you're a new runner. But in general, if you think about your walk time being driven by your age, the older you are, the more you may want to walk. Or the hotter it is, the muggier it is, you may want to walk longer. Or if you're running harder, you may want to walk longer. So give a little more thought to your walk time other than just meeting a certain ratio. Now, my last key takeaway is actually an example where you may want to walk more than 30 seconds. And this key takeaway is, if something in Run Walk Run's not working for you, do not be afraid to make big changes. I had a subscriber comment, they were 70 or in their early 70s. They were doing a 30-second walk and roughly a 4-minute run, and they said they just had problems starting back up running after their walk break. So I had a friend suggest, why don't you double your walk time and increase your run time by a minute? So they originally were doing a 8-to-1 ratio. They were running for 4 minutes and walking 30 seconds. And they went down to a 5-to-1 ratio where they're walking 5 minutes and walking a minute. And what they found is that it was much easier for them to start back running. It was a much easier interval for them, and they were much more successful in meeting their running objective. So don't be afraid to make a big change. And this is a great example, again, of where you might want to walk more than 30 seconds. But don't be afraid to make those big changes if something's not working for you with Run, Walk, Run. So these 5 key takeaways are just kind of like suggestions, things I've learned. You should use them in your Run, Walk, Run as best fits you. You don't have to follow them exactly. They're just suggestions. But they work for me, and I hope they will work for you too. Now, if you want more information on Run, Walk, Run, please check out the playlist I'm going to queue up at the end here, and you can see some of my other videos on Run, Walk, Run. Now, if you like this video, I'd really appreciate if you would scroll down and hit that like icon. Those likes really help my channel. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing by hitting the subscribe icon also. Thank you so much, and happy running.